Randomness can be pretty handy when making games or using Redstone for decoration, but it can also be a bit tough to come by due to the fairly consistent behavior of most Redstone devices. Luckily, droppers and dispensers are able to pick one of their slots at random. You can also use mobs, pathfinding, and physics to make something that's somewhat random, although it's not always the best if you need something random on demand. Luckily, the first set of random things I want to talk about is where these things can come in handy. Randomly timed inputs. If you want something to happen at somewhat random times, one thing you can do is put a mob in a little chamber with some space to move and a pressure plate. It'll pathfind around the chamber, occasionally hitting the pressure plate and activating whatever you hook it up to. Alternatively, you could put an armor stand on top of a piece of redstone ore and watch that ore with an observer. That'll put out a signal occasionally whenever the ore stops being lit for a split second. You could also hook it up to a small farm for things like bamboo, sugarcane, weeping vines, dripstone, anything like that. You'll get varying timings on what you choose, so this method gives you plenty of options, as well as some items if you choose to collect stuff from the thing. One more thing you could use is copper aging, but that's really inconsistent, takes a really long time, and only gives you 3 triggers before the copper is fully aged, and you have to replace it. So it's mostly just a concept, not super helpful in practice. Another way you could use randomness is by generating a random signal strength and making use of that in some way. Getting a random signal strength is mostly dependent on droppers and dispensers in some way, but there are a couple different ways you can go about the details. For one, you could use a dropper and items with different stack sizes to get a different comparator reading. Then use a hopper to feed the item back into the dropper for next time you need one. This one's pretty easy and simple, but you're only able to get 2 different signal strength options out of it. 3 if you get a little extra fancy, or maybe some more if you put multiple of them together, but that'll make it a little less simple and easy. To get more signal strengths in a more simple and easy way, you could use a dispenser placing shulker boxes with different amounts of things in them. Read the box with a comparator to get your signal strength, and when you're done, break the box with a piston, pick it up with a hopper, and put it back into the dispenser. One more useful thing you can do with randomness is to activate a random thing from a set of options. Unfortunately, there's not a lot to go over with this one. It's usually just best to go with a random signal strength and use a red coder or something similar to turn that into a signal in a random spot. You could probably do some stuff with a mob in a room, but that'll only really be better if you're building on a budget. To be fair, shulker boxes aren't exactly the most budget-friendly redstone material, so there may be some use in that concept, but the shulker box thing is pretty consistent and works pretty well. Now, sometimes it can help you to absorb new information if you have a little example of how to use things. So, I'm going to use this little archery mini game that I made a bit back to show off the little shulker box thing a bit. So if I start it up here, you'll see that it picks a random target out of 3 to open up, and it'll re-randomize it every time you hit one of the targets in there. It kind of looks like it's just going in a sequence right now, but I promise you it is random. At some point, we're going to see that, hopefully. There. It broke the sequence. Looks a little more random now, hopefully. Thank you for proving my... Why is it all metal? I promise it's random. Just to walk through the random bit quick, there's a few things going on. We're not going to worry about this. Just want to focus on the random bit. So we got our 3 targets up here. They're being covered up by these pistons, which are being powered with these torches by default. if I were to unpower this block, that would let these torches be powered, unpowering these, retracting pistons, and showing off the target, opening it up for shooty shooty. Now, in order to choose one of these blocks to unpower, we have got the randomizer here. Like I said, shulker box 1. I have a shulker box that will emit a 1 with a comparator. I have a shulker box that'll emit a 3 with a comparator, and a shulker box with a 5. Every time this little thing gets powered by like over here and stuff, all the other inputs, it'll retract this piston, fire the dispenser to shoot out whatever's in here. That'll place the shulker box, and this comparator will read that shulker box, do the little red coder type thing, because it'll depower this, and if it's only a signal strength of 1, this bit won't get powered. So it'll leave this block unpowered and retract the piston. Hopefully that made some amount of sense. Hopefully seeing it in action is helpful. But that's pretty much all I've got, so on to the outro. And that's about all I wanted to say. Not a very long video this time, but I figured it was useful stuff to know. Hopefully you learned something useful or were somewhat entertained. As usual, questions are more than welcome if I wasn't clear on something or didn't talk about something you were curious about. Now I'm out of things to say, so have a good day and have fun doing some redstone.